So how did you feel when you would be locked up again and you had been locked up before?
Well, which time? I was in prison, I mean, in and out of prison, you know, all the time. And I can remember that sitting in the cell, always, you know, after getting put in there, and really upset, you know, I was locked up, I couldn't do anything, I was always thinking about the outside, and I'd always say a prayer. But I'd get out of jail and I would do it again. I would just right back into the same old thing. And
there are currently well over 2 million Americans behind bars. 60% of these individuals will return to prison. A study shows that thresholds can cut this rate in half. So what is Thresholds?
Thresholds is a nonprofit organization of volunteers that teach decision-making skills in the prison.
So Thresholds came to Delaware County in the early 1970s. What happened was there were people in the community who were concerned about things that were going on in the prison. There was some negative press about the local prison, and they wanted to have some input into what was going on in the prison. And they heard about this program that a man named Mickey Burglas was doing up in Bucks County. And they invited him to come down to Delaware County and present his program, which was Thresholds. And from there they thought this would be a great way to have citizen involvement in the prison, where you have people from the community coming in to work with inmates one-on-one and teach a decision-making program. The way that the Thresholds program works, there's kind of two components to it. The inmates meet one-on-one with a volunteer teacher who comes in and meets with them once a week for about 1 to 2 hours at a time. And they use a workbook to teach a 6-step decision-making process. And then the one-on-one sessions are supplemented with a group class that's taught by some of our more experienced teachers. And that's when the inmates get a chance to interact with one another, hear differences of opinion by their fellow inmates, and just kind of get a reinforcement on the Thresholds program.
When the first night after we had our micro sessions, that the greatest thing was to sit down with somebody from outside and have them interact with you like you're a human being, like you're somebody just like them, not an inmate.
I know when I try to talk to people and ask them to come and be a part of the program and volunteer, who, me? I'm not going into prison. I'm going behind those clanging doors and, you know, like that. But what you find behind those clanging doors is so much different than you expect. It's a human being looking for help.
6-7 week program that I teach, it allows you to be able to teach the person the tools. You know, I say that sometimes to my client. I'll say, look, I got a box full of tools here I want to show you how to use.
The most important tool we use is a decisional model, first envisioned by Mickey Burglas, himself a former inmate. While doing time in New Orleans, Mickey observed that many of his fellow inmates tended to react without thinking when faced with a difficult situation. So later, as a graduate student at Harvard, he developed Thresholds as his doctoral dissertation. The essentials of Mickey's decision-making process remain the same today after 35 years of use in prisons.
And one thing that I really enjoyed about this whole course was the exercise about thinking outside the box, you know. That really took me to higher heights because, you know, we live inside a box, being here in prison, and a lot of times, you know, our minds can become trapped in here.
How can you help? Thresholds needs volunteers here at the George W. Hill Correctional Facility in Thornton, at the State Prison in Chester, and at the Juvenile Detention Center in Lima, Pennsylvania. We hold 2-day training workshops 3 times a year. Of course, we can always use additional funding. Won't you join us in this important and rewarding work, changing the lives of the incarcerated, one at a time?
I said that when she came and we shut the door, it was like I wasn't in prison anymore. My life is better than anything that I had planned.
It is so surprising that they don't realize that there are other options. And when you show them the way to make other points of the decisions. It's enlightening.
I can't stress it enough how important it is to decide rather than react, because when you decide, you got control, and things change, and they really do change.
We have a ritual that ends our first group session. We say together, I am unique, I am important, and I am irreplaceable. And that is true of each of us on both sides of those clanging doors. Saying it is the easy part. Believing it and acting with pride and conviction, that takes some work.